Assalamu alaikum, peace be on all. So I was sent this video clip by a friend on Facebook. It's Frank Turek, a Christian apologist, debating Christipher Hitchens, who's one of the four horsemen of the neo-atheistic movement. In the debate, Frank Turek asks a question. He posited the question to Hitchens, and he asked him, how do you account for your moral compass when it's all based on basically benzene molecules and carbon atoms, molecules and motions, pretty much. The molecules and motions and all these physical processes, physical stuff, the things that are making you function. You know, it's all based on physicalism at the end of the day. Naturalism, philosophical naturalism, physicalism, materialism. Hitchens' used sophistry and casuistry. He dodged the question completely, and instead of answering from an intellectually honest position, which would be philosophical naturalism predicated on the physical, he dismissed all of that, and he went to Socrates to throw a red herring, because that's what he's doing. Is he went off on a tangent, chasing the rabbit trail and basically throwing red herrings to beguile the audience with his sophistry and intellectual dishonesty. So this is what he said. He said, pretty much, I'm paraphrasing, that Socrates, during his trial, they accused him of being a blasphemer. He said something about a daemon, not a demon, but a daemon, which is his inner critic, an inner critic, a conscience. These people are talking about the moral compass. They're talking about the conscience. They're talking about the fitra. Him and Sam Harris, both of them are theophilosophically illiterate. They're theophilosophically illiterate. And he dodged the question completely. The question posited by Turek. The question is simple. How do you justify your moral compass under philosophical naturalism? Even if you want to use Darwinism. It's science. Science is amoral, if you study the basic philosophy of science. But he knows that he has no answer under atheism, so he has to use sophistry and the rhetoric, because that's who he is. He's an intellectually dishonest man, and I'll keep repeating this. So he says, we have a conscience. Okay, how do you justify the conscience? All he did was say that we have an angel, a good angel, and we have a demon or a devil, and we have to listen to one of them. The good one or a bad one. This is what he said in a nutshell. Appealing to fairy tales. Appealing to emotions. This individual one time said, you cannot reason with the religious. They speak from emotions. Y'all been appealing to emotions since day one. Because you don't even know what God entails. Y'all are mesotheists. Not atheists and agnostics. If you know what God entails, you would buckle. So basically, when I asked this agnostic ex-Muslim, how do you justify your moral compass, he didn't get it. And he kept talking about experience. Experience has nothing to do with anything. Experience does not provide a justification. Oh, I grew up in this Muslim culture. Someone else grew up in a Christian culture. Buddhist, Scandinavian, Hindus. That does not justify anything. Your moral compass. If you watch the movie City of God, and it took place in Rio de Janeiro, in the slums, if it's all based on experience, then these people are moral. Little Zay, who's a gangster pretty much, he clapped gats and bust guns and says he's better than people. That's what the atheists do. We're good because we said so. It's a cyclical fallacy. No justification. Little Zay, I rob and steal. I sell drugs, crack cocaine. And I'm better than you. He doesn't even have to say I'm good. No, I'm better than you. You know what I'm saying? And we all have this conscience. In us, it's embedded. But who planted it? How did it come to be? Yeah, how did it come? How did it emerge? How do you justify it? How do you account for it? Why are we hardwired in such fashion? Why? Why do we have this fitra, innate disposition, as the Prophet, peace be upon him, called it? This is how God made us, so we can be God conscious. With the conscience that we have in nafs al-lawwama, says that in the Quran. And the reason God planted this conscience that can make you feel guilty when you do something wrong, and the fact you can feel guilty shows that you're actually good. You haven't been desensitized yet. The moment you're desensitized is the moment you become a psychopath or a sociopath, as Hitchens stated. He was engaging from a religious discourse, nonetheless. And people have the nerve to say that we appeal to emotions. No, we're discussing morality. I'm not appealing to emotions, and I'm appealing to a justification. On the other hand, he's appealing to emotions, conscience, without justification. If someone drops his wallet, the right thing to do, because we have a conscience, is to pick it up and give it back to him. Only the cruel will take it. You see, one can justify under atheism with a rational justification. It's not even a justification. I don't want to even call it that. But just using his own rationale, okay, his own ways of thinking. Someone drops his wallet, he's clumsy, he's lousy, he's unorganized, he's careless. He deserves to be jacked. Let's take it and teach him a lesson. That's a mentality right there under atheism. That's an explanation. It's the same explanation you provided without accounting for your conscience. You haven't accounted for your conscience. All you did was just say you have a conscience. That's it. Sophistry, rhetoric. The man is theophilosophically illiterate. Hitchens, him and Sam Harris, and Richard Dawkins. Poor, lousy thinkers when it comes to theophilosophy. They don't know how to philosophize, and the masses are heedless. And they bow to them and follow them blindly. Because the masses are also ignorant. A bunch of ultra-crepidarians. Listening to a bunch of ultra-crepidarians like them. Listen, man, we have a conscience because God implanted in us. And that's a trust as well. The free will is a trust, and it comes with conscience. So when someone does something wrong, you can feel and feels guilty. It shows that he hasn't been desensitized, like I said. Little Zay from City of God, the movie, Rio de Janeiro, these hoodlums in the slums trying to make it big. The slums were imposed on them. They had no choice. If you want to claim experience and justify your moral compass based on experience, they can justify their moral compass based on experience as well. Okay? They can justify their moral compass based on growing up in the slums. It was imposed on them. What they're doing is moral. Especially from a naturalistic perspective. What is morality? It's all based on bosons and fermions. You're a zombie or robot. It's all deterministic. If you're going to engage like this and say it's just we have a conscience, the hell with that. Someone might tell you, no, we don't have a conscience. Simple as that too. Someone might come and tell you, I do not have it. If you have it, you have it. I don't. How are you going to justify that he doesn't have it? You're going to have to deem him a liar and say, you're lying. Because everyone has a conscience. Justify it. Prove it. You can't. Just like when we say God exists. Oh, this guy believes in fairy tales. Well, you just talked about conscience. How are you going to demonstrate a conscience when someone can be desensitized of it? Therefore, he can say, I have a lack of conscience. Just like you say, a lack of belief in God. I have a lack of conscience. It's the same thing. He dodged the question because he is intellectually dishonest. And he knows under atheism he has no answer. Morality is subjective. Matter of fact, moral nihilism is the fact of the matter. If you philosophize it and go deep. Under atheism, it's a morality. A lack of morality. And that's the bottom line. And Allah talks about it in nafs al-lawwama, conscience. Allah says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا أقسم بيوم القيامة ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة أيحسب الإنسان أن نجمع عظامه بلى قادرين على أن نسوي بنانه. I swear by the day of resurrection, and I swear by the self-reproaching conscience, that resurrection is a reality. See, we have a conscience, so we can distinguish as well between right and wrong. And that's what it is. God made it easy on us. So when we do something, we feel guilty. When we do something bad, evil, we feel guilty. Or else we become desensitized. But we all have this embedded in us. And that's why from an Islamic lens, the human being is pure. He's just not omniscient. Does man think that we will never resemble his bones? Why can we not do so? While we are able to reset even his fingertips perfectly. If Allah has brought us into being in the first place, what makes you think He won't be able to do it again? And it says the same thing in the Quran. When a pagan Arab questioned Allah and the Messenger, it says, وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسْيَ خَلْقَهُ قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. And he has given us an example. Okay, this is from the top of my head because I don't have it here. And asked, who will revive the bones when it's dust in the grave? Allah told the Prophet, say, it is He who has brought it in the first place, who created it in the first place. And He is aware of all of His creation. Allah, the omniscient, aware being. Allah is not heedless. Allah is aware, is conscious being. He has conscience, is a conscious entity of everything in existence, in reality. And he's a super mathematician. He can bring it back perfectly. The fingertips, the fingerprints, everything will come back. And even better than it was before. So Allah talks about conscience. Allah talks about conscience in this ayah, in this sign or verse. And He's swearing by the conscience that is self-reproaching. When you feel guilty, for example, you can correct your action unless it's completely desensitized. And the only way we can account for it is through God. If you want to predicate it on physicalism, naturalism, Darwinism, the Darwinian theory of evolution is an incitement to crime. That is simply a fact by David Stobe. Everything is predicated on the physical. Little Z is justified in his action under Darwinism. Little Z was brought up in the slums, in the movie City of Gods. This is how he operates. Who are you to come and tell him you're immoral? He wants to survive, since Darwinism is based on survival. And he's doing it by any means necessary in the slums, in a city where he's a poor individual. All he can do is sell drugs, bust guns, and say he's better than people. And at the end of the day, call himself a man. I do drugs, I bust guns, I've killed, I've smoked. That's their definition of a man. I guess they do not have a conscience, or a lack of conscience. The burden of proof is on you now, Hitchens, to prove that we all have a conscience. The problem with the neo-atheists, they don't know what God entails. They're playing games.
And by the way, Hitchens understood that question. But he's an absolute kafir. Someone who covers up the truth. And the way he covered up the truth is by not revealing the falsehood. You understand what I'm saying? He's a sophist. If he wanted to actually engage from his worldview, he would be revealing the falsehood. A lot of atheists will be turned off as soon as he answers the question adequately and honestly. Because it's all based on molecules. And benzene molecules, that's what it is. That's what bosons and fermions, subparticles that are basically guiding you. What is a conscience? It's nothing. It's an illusion. Just like conscious and free will. It's all an illusion. Because Sam Harris will tell you free will is an illusion. Same with Dan Dennett. Consciousness is an illusion as well. Therefore, conscience is an illusion as well. Therefore, little Zay from City of God busting the cap and the gat till it gets too hot, and that's what gloves on as well, is amoral. He's just surviving, bro. It's just bosons and fermions producing introspective illusion at the end of the day. There's nothing. Morality is not nihilistic. What are you talking about? With the sophistry, drop that. Drop the ego, man. God exists, and that's the bottom line. Please believe. Okay? It's mystical. All these things are mystical. You cannot explain it. We don't know what it is. Please contemplate, ponder, and reflect. And stop playing games, atheist. God exists. If your aim is to make money off YouTube and make a channel and just to refute and be pugnacious like Cosmic Skeptic and T-Jump and all these people and Razvan, who's philosophically illiterate, then honestly, you don't know what the day of requital is. The day of requital. You don't know what it is. Because you don't know what God entails. This is serious. It's not a joke. I mean, it is Allah who's in control of everything. Check out occasionalism. Check out occasionalism. The only reason you feel free is because you have free will. You've been entrusted with free will. Or else you would have been like the animals or like the mountain. Based on intuition or just situated. You cannot move unless Allah tells you to move. You cannot collapse unless Allah makes you collapse. Hard determinism without free will or anything. But we have free will, so we feel free. But are we really free? No. We're bounded by the physical, and that's why submission is the fact of the matter. And free will is just based on choices and consequences. Because with choice entails consequences. And a will as well, a free will, if you want to call it that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك كلا بل تكذبون بالدين. Oh man, what has deceived you about your gracious Lord, who created you, then perfected you, then brought you in due proportion. He composed you in whichever form he willed. One should never be heedless towards him, but you deny the requital. What is the requital? Allah repeats it again in the same surah, in the same chapter. And what may let you know what the day of requital is? Again, what may let you know what the day of requital is? The day of judgment. This is what God entails. Ultimate accountability. You deny God, an eternal king, you receive an eternal punishment. Just like if you deny a temporal king on a social scale, you receive temporal punishment. Please contemplate, reflect, and ponder. Peace out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.